What's up, IT friends? Happy Tuesday. How you doing? A couple weeks ago, I made a video on why I think you should stop saying that you're like a family during the interview process. And my video rustled some jimmies. There were a few of you that reached out to me and said, well, hang on a minute. We absolutely are like a family at work, and our employees love us. And it wouldn't be Dean if I didn't get a shot in here. Well, besides the fact that you missed the point of the video, which was just saying don't say that during the interview, you're right. You were right. There are some of you, and more of you than I expected, that actually do a great job at creating a work culture that is genuinely like a family. And so it got me to thinking, and I reached out to a few of you. What traits do your company share in common that have allowed you to arrive at this? So I made a list. So we're going to go over 10 things, 10 traits that all of the companies that reached out to me that genuinely do act like a family at work in an earnest and honest and meaningful way, things they have in common. So the first thing that's on my list that everybody in my Council of Effective Family Execution actually managed to pull off consistently, it's strong communication. And this one really should be no surprise. Employees do not like working for companies that don't have strong internal communication. And everybody that reached out to me, everybody that's on this list, had super effective internal communication and multiple methods of making sure that everybody who worked there was always on the same page. Next thing that everybody who was in my collective of family friends had in common, and not all of them might realize they have this in common, but it was supportive leadership. It's leaders who demonstrate genuine care and support for their employees. They take an interest in the well-being, both personal and professional, and offer guidance and mentorship when needed. And I don't think that there are many leaders that don't support their staff, like as an intention, but I don't know that everybody, and a lot of things on this list you're going to say are like this. I don't know that everybody really puts the meaningful work in to actually provide that support. Everybody that was on this list does this in some form at their organization. The next one was pretty easy. It's empathy. Everybody who was on this list, all of the collective of Forever Families, they had companies that fostered a culture of empathy where employees understand and respect each other's perspectives, feelings, and experiences. Creates a sense of belonging and solidarity. And nearly all of these companies, I think if we were to pull aside a random employee, would agree that their bosses, their coworkers, but then the company as a whole, if you were to sort of anthropomorphize the business, all of that really displayed consistently the sense of empathy, which I think is really important. So the next one, number 4, is team collaboration. And I don't think any of us don't want team collaboration. And in fact, if you're listening to this video and you do not do a great job of executing as a family, whatever, if you're listening to this video, you're probably thinking, hey, I do that. You probably do. But what I specifically mean by this, it's not just providing collaborative software or spaces or policies. It's companies that actively encourage randoms from different parts of the company, from different departments, different teams, to work together to solve common problems in a consistent manner. Everybody rows in the same direction in all of these companies because they want to, because that's the only right way to do it there. And that's the important difference that probably separates folks from able to execute on this from those who aren't. Number 5 on our list of commonly shared traits amongst companies that actually are able to embody a family culture. And I think this is one of the most important ones on the list because employees can tell you are full of BS if you're not actually doing this. It's work-life balance, right? Now, this is something, some of these, you notice a lot of these are very similar to interview questions or interview value props, which goes back to the initial premise. Work-life balance is a great one. Who doesn't love to say during an interview, our company has work-life balance? The thing is, most employees can tell in the first 3 months if you're full of crap. And everybody that was on this list is objectively not full of crap. They really do respect and embody this. And so a company that values work-life balance actively supports employees in achieving it, actively supports them in achieving it. Sometimes that means kicking them out the door so they can go achieve it. Go take your lunches. Flexible working hours, remote work options, and policies that prioritize personal time contribute to a healthier work environment. And everybody I talked to had some cornerstone element of their culture or multiple elements around this concept. And they would actively monitor the mental health of their employees, and even sometimes to the detriment of the internal, work output of the company, force people to take time for themselves. I don't want people burned out. You don't want them either. Everybody that had a company that genuinely felt like a family actively managed work-life balance. Number 6 is recognition and appreciation. Once again, pretty common thing that I don't think anybody listening here is opposed to. And like a lot of the stuff on the list, there's doing this, and then there's really doing this. So employees feel valued and appreciated for their contributions. Recognition programs, praise from leaders, and opportunities for advancement based on merit all reinforce a sense of belonging and motivation. It's not just going in and saying you did a good job. The companies, all of the companies that I spoke to that I really think embody this culture, they don't just tell you when you did a good job. They tell you why. And they tell you why you did a good job tied back to clear to understand metrics or KPIs that anyone in the company can understand. And that's the important part. You don't just know that you did a good job and got a gold medal for it and why. Everyone else also knows that you did a good job and got a gold medal for it and why. Next thing on my list of attributes that everybody on the Council of Fabulous Familia shares in common. Number 7, shared values. So I think a lot of us have gone in on mission, vision, and core values. So if you've done that, hooray, you've checked off more than half of item number 7. But everybody that's on this list takes it a step further. So yes, they have clearly defined values that align with those of their employees, and they share there's a shared sense of purpose, and it creates a deeper connection and fosters a feeling of being part of a unified community. But all of them manage value drift. And I think that's a really important asterisk and a difference between the regular companies and the companies that really do cultivate this feeling of being like a family. Because your company values and your employees' perception of what they mean, how they operate, and if they're appropriate can drift over time. And everybody on this list takes that extra step to manage that value drift by consistently checking in with their staff to make sure those values are still appropriate, adjusting them if necessary, or helping everybody get back on the same page as how they should be interpreting them. And next up on our collective of family facts, we get to inclusivity and diversity. And this one's an interesting one because, once again, like a couple others on here, I don't think that there's anybody listening to this that's going to cross their arms and say, I want my company to be unwelcoming and to be non-diverse. I think anybody really sets out with that goal, but even though that's not how most of us are trying to operate, there's a difference between having a checkbox of inclusivity and diversity and really fostering that culture. And that's the difference. So let's talk about that really quickly. So companies that do this well, and everybody who's on this list, diversity is celebrated, inclusivity is a priority. Employees from diverse backgrounds feel welcome, respected, and included, contributing to a rich tapestry of perspectives and experiences. That doesn't mean that these companies have necessarily a DEI policy, because having one doesn't mean that you're magically inclusive and diverse. And there are companies that do have a DEI policy that fails spectacularly at executing this. All the companies that I talk to that execute on this well, it ties into the other core values where they genuinely make an effort to have everybody who wants to work at their company and is capable of doing so feel honestly and earnestly welcome to be a part of the company. And it's a surprisingly low bar to achieve that. And then the diversity part, it isn't forced diversity. It isn't any of these companies went out, with some interpretation of a quota or something like that, because they're welcoming, because they're giving everybody who wants a reasonable chance to work there an opportunity to do so and be successful. It starts to attract talent that reflect different walks of life, different viewpoints, and different identities. And everybody comes together, even if they don't always agree, to form basically a family or a team, but one that actually gets along with each other. So number 9, this is one of my favorites, because this is one of those that you'll see on a lot of anti-work forums as being the main reason why people hated working for your family-like company. And I'm sure that even at all the companies that I spoke to and I made this list, I'm sure there have been employees in the past who probably didn't like this one. But all of them shared this in common, and I was always a fan of it. So it's going on my list. Number 9, social events and activities. So the company organizes social events, team building activities, and initiatives that bring employees together outside of work tasks. These events foster friendships and camaraderie, strengthening that family bond. The importance is that everybody I spoke to doesn't force this. It isn't mandatory. But because they're doing everything else on the list, when they organize one of these, usually most, if not all, of the company shows up of their own volition. We found this a lot, not only at everybody I spoke to on this list, even my previous MSP. It was this general culture of like, hey, if we all like each other and we all get along at work and generally feel included and welcome and supported, then there's a good chance that we probably won't mind socializing with each other, even if we're not the group we normally would pick on our own time. And that ends up meaning that if you do decide you want to schedule something, most people will just show up because they don't hate being around all of you. And everybody on this list embodies that. And I think this is a really great litmus test, because you can tell if this isn't working at your company, and therefore if you're failing at being like a family, if nobody ever wants to show up to anything and you have to force them to. I mean, that one's pretty easy. And last but not least on my list of the 10 things that I saw that everybody who does manage to be somewhat like a family all have in common is supportive policies and benefits. This is another one of those things where, of course, I want that. I don't want my staff to have bad benefits, but it's taking it a step further. It's not just saying we cover 100% of dental and vision or something like that, which is great. And to be very clear, I have yet to meet a company in the IT space that isn't trying to put forth the best possible benefits they can afford to at that time in their business. So some of these I might be criticizing some folks. This one, I think almost across the entire industry, all of you are succeeding at doing the best you can. But that's not all there is. Everybody on this list is already doing the best they possibly can, but they take it a step further and they review what they're offering to make sure it's actually aligned with what their employees need. And that's the important one, because almost everything on this list can be like a checkbox where you could say, like a compliance report, like a SOC 2 audit. I am doing it. Yay! But you need to take it a little bit further than just the checkbox. And I think supportive policies and benefits is a great one to finish this list on, because companies who do that really go in and make sure that what they're offering is best aligned to what the employees are using, need, and want. And kind of like we talked about earlier with value drift, they make sure there's not benefits drift. And it's that final level of sort of active involvement with making sure that the benefits you're providing still align with what your employees want. Your employees can tell, and they can see that extra effort. And that's a major difference between just having the checkbox filled and actually embodying having supportive benefits and policies. So that was my 10 things that every company that reached out to me and said, hey, our actual culture that we live is like a family, Dean. And what the hell? Well, those are 10 things all of you shared. I do want to say that I really appreciate everybody who reached out to me to say, hey, hang on a second here. We're like that and we're not full of crap. It was a surprising number of you that were willing to do that. And in some cases, let me talk to your employees, which I really appreciate. But I will bookend this by saying that I still think you represent a minority of the industry in that you exemplify everything on this list perfectly, and you've managed to grow and sustain that culture long term as your companies are successful. That's hard to do. That's not easy. And so those of you that are doing that, you have put in a lot of work into doing it, and I'm real proud of you. But I don't want somebody who's listening to this who's not willing to put in that work to be like, oh, this is easy, I can do it tomorrow. No, you can't. It takes work. You got to make a commitment to it. And therefore, I still think that in your interview process, you probably shouldn't say you're like a family. But I do think it's an excellent goal to strive for in actual execution. I hope you have an amazing Tuesday. And to all of the companies out there, MSPs, vendors, VARs, everything, that are actually embodying this list, that's awesome. Good for you. We need more of you. And you should comment on this video and let people know that you are a company that embodies this list. Because I think that other businesses need to look at you and understand what good looks like so they can replicate it. Have a great Tuesday.